everybody. We are back. Ryan Doyle at the Vertigo Table here with Zahaab. We're going to make a pilgrim. And maybe they're going to go out on the El Camino, or maybe they have already done that and are
Mhm.
going to adventure. We're gonna find out together. If you don't know, this is a page from pages from the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation, background archetypes. We're going to build a character, and then we're going to build an adventure around that character in sort of a free association off of these tables. Right out of the gate, Zab, I want to tell you this is your character. You're in the driver's seat. I am not going to hold back from giving you ideas
Okay, I'd
because
love that. Thank
because
you.
I can't. They just come out. But
Mhm.
yeah, don't feel like you have to do it in a proper way or something. You've used these expertly before, actually. So
Yeah,
I'm not too
yeah,
worried about
definitely.
that caveat with you.
I,
You know what
I,
you're doing here.
so I really, really love this tool. It's currently at the so in my podcast, the Blank Slate, we sometimes review tools, and I'll have a buddy with me, and we'll roll on tables. And one of my buddies that joins me, Shamba, he's famously really hard to impress with these tools. And like we went through the Dungeons Masters guide and made a world. We used a bunch of other ones, and every time he's like 4 out of 10.
Hmm.
I don't see the use of it. Blah 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 blah. And he really tries to attack the tables in a way that they won't work. He really likes. He has. I don't think he does this purposefully, but he doesn't like often he falls into the bank of people that the tables are almost too restrictive for them for where they
Mm,
want to take things. And
mm.
I think in our video, in that podcast I did with him on this tool, I forgot the name of it. Explosive creation is what I think I referred to it as.
The
What's it?
explosive is
What's
the
the
part
full
that
time?
people, it's too many words, but yeah,
Okay.
explosive is the important part.
Yeah, yeah. The explosive
I
creation
think I might give
tables
it a
that you have.
subtitle when I finally like publicly publish the whole thing, so it's easier to think about.
It would just be like all the D&D books. Nobody calls them by them. Then we just find a nice acronym.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah,
but
GMCXC.
we tried to he was actively like, okay, we'll have this, but we need something to fit into this part, and then we'll roll on the table. And he was so convinced it wouldn't work, and then we just kept hitting the perfect lines that exploded into this
Mm,
beautiful character. And it's currently the top ranking thing of all the things we've tested. So I really love this tool set. I think it's
mm.
very special.
And that was fun to watch because it's always like I think this is cool and fun around half of the time. The other half of the time I think it's stupid and it sucks because that's the creative process.
Mhm.
Um, but it was cool to watch. I mean, because like we had interacted a few times before, but like I still don't know your buddy, and
Yeah, yeah.
he's a VTuber. He's just like this animated robot frog guy, and you were like grafting it onto Drillas, which is not a thing I know anything about, but
Oh
like
yeah,
a
that
very
was fun.
particular subset of like
UK rappers.
UK rappers, which
S- s-
also I got some like professional wrestling vibes. They have masks and like it's not
Yeah,
necessarily
yeah,
the
yeah.
same part. I was like, I
It's
don't even
very
know
much
what
like
we're
that.
talking about or if this is gonna fit. So like a whole different genre grafted onto like, it's fairly vanilla medieval fantasy that I'm pointed at.
Hmm.
And the first one went
Yeah.
well. I forget what the first archetype was, but the second one you were debating between two, and he
Hmm.
was like, let's do, is it the
Cultist.
cultists? Because it's
I think it
probably
was.
bad. Like I'm going to pick the
Yeah,
one that's the hardest to do well to prove
yeah.
that this thing isn't good. And I was just like, okay, this is going to be interesting. Because like I was pure audience
Hmm.
at that point. I was like, this is going to be interesting. I hope like
Yeah.
it's fun to watch someone try to break your thing and fail.
Yeah, it was. I think our first one was a bounty hunter. Then we did a cultist.
Hmm. Hmm.
We did. I was hyped on bounty hunters at the time, and then the cultists. I think early on in our discussions when we had our first episode or whatever with him, we both agreed that cultists are the most overdone thing in D&D. And D.
Yeah.
And it's not overdone in the sense that there's too many of them. I mean, like they're so they're so every world is so full of them that they get
Hmm.
really generic. So to
Hmm.
have a table that makes them really flavorful and assists you to do this is such a big gain. He was convinced nobody could do it. Well, at least it wouldn't be so obvious to do it properly, and then your table blew it out of the park. It was great.
Yeah, which I mean,
Set the
thank you.
tables.
That's a great endorsement. I appreciate that. But it was
Hmm.
also interesting to be like, which one of these is gonna suck the hardest? That's the one I want to stress test. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah.
like this is a good approach. Like this is val scary but valid, like interesting feedback that I need to hear.
Mhm.
And yeah, this is to make an interesting player character that's three-dimensional, but also to flesh out an NPC. Or really, it doesn't have to be in the beginning of a campaign. If you are a dungeon master, I mean, one, sometimes players have to roll up new characters, but two, you always need NPCs. And three, this is a toolbox to just make more adventures on the fly or in prep that theoretically players are the most likely to give a shit about because it's connected to who their character is as a person.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
so to start off, I'm going to ask you to roll one of everything. A D20, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4. Oh yeah. Yes.
that's the best part. I
That's
love
the
this tool because you always want to just throw all your dice, and this lets you do it. I got them here.
yes.
Do
The
you want to go through
alternative
all of
method
them?
is to make a tower first and then
Oh,
smash it onto the floor.
okay.
But that takes a lot longer. So we
So,
are rolling with the pilgrim. Our first is the D20. This is drives, dreams, and
mhm.
aspirations. What is your character's motivation?
I haven't looked at any of the dice yet, but I'll tell you what's going through my head as soon as I hear Pilgrim. Before we
Yes,
even start,
please,
is that okay?
please. Good. Oh, that's
Okay.
great. I
So,
love it.
so I'm thinking, so in our previous discussion, we discussed pilgrimages and hikes and people going through these long arcs for in our own history for like religious purposes and stuff. So that's really flavoring it. I'm thinking of the Camino de Santiago that we talked about. I'm thinking of like Hajj and those sorts of trips, like going to Mecca, that people used to do. And in the Islamic law, there's all these great tales of people going to Hajj and traveling such far distances to go to Mecca.
Mhm. I mean,
And
to this day, I mean, it's still that's
yeah,
going on right now. People are going,
mhm. Yeah, the stories now are less fun. People just jump on a
oh,
jet. They don't
well,
have to
yeah.
traverse the desert, right?
Okay. I'm with you. I hear you. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
less
I'm thinking like big, long
$30
traverse.
surcharge because they for baggage fees. This is
Yeah, it's actually it's actually one of the most expensive trips you can do for this purpose. There's so much
oh,
demand, right?
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's it's pretty funny in that regard. Yeah, and I think you got like the Canterbury Tales in my mind.
Mm.
Uh, Loosely, I'm thinking like the I'm gonna get this wrong. The Shikoku pilgrimage in Japan, like things of that the Shinto religion do,
Oh,
Varanasi in India.
mm.
I'm like real global globetrotter person is what's happening in my mind.
Ooh,
Like
I like
real
it.
spiritual traveler. Okay,
Yeah,
so
because there's different angle, right? Like that's the default is like there's some sort of like spiritual religious connotation, but like
mhm,
the pilgrimage is just like you can take a spiritual trip from A to B
mhm.
for like secular reasons, right? Like
Yeah,
eat, pray,
the
love is a pilgrimage story, right?
yeah,
Like,
so is like Fair and Love in Las Vegas.
oh God.
You know,
Oh,
as a
you know what?
pilgrimage.
I love
The
everything you said,
Hangover.
but now I'm gonna put it on a shelf because we are making a Hunter S. Thompson adventure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Well,
Hangover is a pilgrimage. Um, yeah, yeah. I'm excited. I also like the Count of Monte Cristo. I guess counts. Like this
hmm,
vengeance story is just hanging over him, and he's making his way back.
yeah.
Um, Napoleon making his way back to the mainland from the islands. Anyway, yeah, let's get into it. So, three. I got three on the D20.
Okay.
Drive, dreams, and aspirations.
So you're looking to uncover a sacred relic and safely return with it. That's sometimes a default assumption in D&D where it's like we found the final room and we got the thing. It's like, well, now you got
Mm-hmm.
to get it back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so
Yeah,
that's
like the
it.
ring and stuff from
Right,
Lord of the
right.
Rings, right? Okay, I'm thinking of
Um,
a fun relic. And of course, as you roll through it, of course, like you cross certain things, will say now out and bring that back in and have as much like interconnectivity between the tables as possible. Um, what hits me first when I think of uncover a sacred relic and safely return with it? Um, I think something I don't want to do something personal. Like one thing I'll start with the veto first. I know it's a bad place to start
no,
building, but I don't want it to be
no,
something personal. I don't want it to be
limits are an important part of creativity. I think that's actually
yeah.
a good place to start sometimes.
I would not want it to be something like, yeah, my mom was stabbed with this knife and I got to go find the knife for like some reason. I want it to be grander than that. I want it to be like
Mm,
multiple people are chasing after this thing, like in
mm,
almost like a One Piece aspect. Like all these people know about it. Everybody has this loose idea of this mythos around this item or this place or this thing. And I've taken up the task to go find it, you know. And I'm walking along, and I guess that comes with a little aspect on the character that they're a little bit perhaps naive, perhaps then they haven't been cast with nihilism about life. Like they have this assuredness or hope that they'll be the one to find this thing.
Mm.
That's what struck me originally as I'm starting to churn about it.
And there
Um,
is definite value in leaving holes, right? So like this, the
mhm,
sacred relic could be a blank even when we're done, because like be it session zero or like you're doing this by yourself and then going to a game with your DM, just like being like, I want to find, I don't know what, and I want to bring it home with me. And like I'm very optimistic that I can, and it's like my sacred task. And like, hey, Dungeon Master, tell me what that magical MacGuffin in your campaign is. And now I'm
mhm,
tied into your story and it's significant to me and I'm significant to it. Because if like, you roll up to the Dungeon Master, like, I want to find the Eye of Vecna. It's like, okay, that's only appropriate for like a 14th level character. We're starting at level one, and that has nothing to do with any of the stuff I just spent months preparing or purchasing.
mhm.
So like sometimes it's having holes is okay too. But I
Yeah,
imagine
definitely.
it's the connections are the interesting part to me. That's why that's all of the dice get dropped at the first time, because they're, yeah, well, that blank might get filled by the time we're done.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So we have the secret relic. We're hitting this angle of like a known thing. And for what the word relic means, I would love to keep it blank, right? To keep it a
Mm,
whole. I would like to not just a relic. Often people think of like items or weapons or things like this. I guess in like a pilgrim context, a lot of people like will go march to see like the spear of destiny or something.
mm,
But I would like it to be just a vague thing. Like it could be a recipe on a piece of paper. Like there's this secret methodology these people have to make like the best kind of wine, and I want to go find it. Like it's a bit of a stress on the word relic, but I think it'd be nice to have that little twist in it
yeah, I
and
like
leave
that
it vague in that
flexibility.
regard.
It could be
Hmm.
like evidence or proof, right? Maybe it's like vindicating something or like supporting our belief system, or yeah.
Hmm.
Um
Yeah, and safely return with it. I like that. I like that. I like that addition. Um, it adds it adds like a sense of consciousness to the journey. It adds like you could imagine a relic that's constantly found, and perhaps
mm,
that's the more important part of this is that you return with it. Like there's this relic that's out there in the world that people come across and find all the time, but it's like it marks you for death, and nobody ever returns with it. But I'm going to be the one
mm.
to return with it. Um, yeah.
And I mean, this is a different kind of, this is a tonal shift, but if we bring this thing back to our village, now we're the tourist destination. Now we're the
Mm,
pilgrimage site, and bring in them, pilgrimage dollars. Let's go. Um,
yeah. Let's make that money. Oh, that's a good angle, right? Where
that's
you're the
something.
pilgrim, rather than having like this spiritual aspect to yourself, you're just a pure materialist. Like I'm just out here for the bag. Like I'm out here. This relic is just to make this money. I want this cash flow.
You've been like
Um,
researching pilgrimage sites to compete with them and build a better one. And you found the target and like, I'm gonna go get this
yeah,
thing and bring it back to the village and I will be the best.
yes,
The
yeah, I
the
like that.
the perfect destination. All right, all right. That's a lot of options on the table to begin with. Our D12 is our catalyst, call to adventure, or lore drop. Theoretically, this is like how you transition from pure pilgrim to adventurer.
Hmm.
So what did you get on your D12?
D12, the dodecahedron.
Mm.
Um, I got a. So these dice are hard to read a little bit. They're pretty though. Uh, 9.
9. A fervent conversion left them eager to act. Interesting.
Fervent conversion. So, I guess classically this way is like you imagine like a I like the fact that this is vague, right? Because it doesn't imply that you were converted. It just means a conversion. Like you can imagine like a conquistador landing on an island and then it's sort of um invokes disgust in you to go out and chase something else to help scurry them away. Or equally, you might have fallen into the line of belief that is fervently being pressed upon you, and you want to walk out to try and prove it and see some great relic that'll reinforce this belief. Um, okay, a fervent conversion.
So maybe you started as like researching, various destinations to make yourself the prime tourist destination, and like somewhere along the way, I mean, this is D&D, some divine intervention somewhere got you on your path to being an adventurer, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is real. Like this is there is value to this. Like I'm on now. I'm in it. Or the
Mm-hmm.
reverse, you saw through it and you saw that it is just these places are just tourist traps, right? And you're like, oh, oh, I see the game here. I'm gonna beat them at it.
Yes, I like that. I like that a lot. I like that angle where it's yeah, it's I want to make a tourist trap.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why that's
Okay.
like it's a gag, but that's I like this feel of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I also
So,
like
so
you're seeing the open-endedness of like it's not necessarily like something changed and it's not necessarily within the character. It could be, but like
mhm.
the state
Yeah,
religion changed and now we have to go on an adventure and do stuff because
yeah,
like
but perhaps the state religion changed. I see everybody around me shift out of one religion to the other,
mm,
and this character notices like, oh, all of these, all of these people don't like. They almost become again, the opposite of what I was saying at the start about the character not being nihilistic. They've become really cynical towards people with faith as
mm.
in their totality, and I might as well just um, use them for my own gain, like I see everyone else doing. Perhaps they've had this sort of experience that they try and convince people, like, no, you're being tricked. No, this is wrong. This isn't real. This is you're just you're moving from one leader to the next and one cult to the next, and I can't convince them. So you know what, uh I should make use of these people as well. There's a word I'm
Yeah,
looking for.
yeah, and you're trying to get proof to show them, right? That's
Ah.
the value of this sacred relic. I mean, it's like probably a magic item, and there's probably some big bad who wants it to like take over the world. But like, if you can get your hands on this item, then you can show them that they've been fooled, or the old way was the true way, or we've been through this all before, and it's like a
Uh,
third god's item
yeah.
of holy resonance that this is what people used to do, and now that's it's changeable.
Yeah. The yeah. I like there's two angles, right? We'll roll more on subsequent rolls. It'll crystallize, but it's yeah, both routes seem pretty interesting. Like the pilgrim that turns his back on his people, gets cynical against them, and realizes I should and gets this taste of exploitation against them and wants to join it. And the other side that's I can cure them of this sort of uh limited experience they're having by just moving between these belief systems. I think that's pretty cool. I'm making little notes.
Oh,
Uh,
cool, cool, cool. I love that. Yeah, because
We'll go first
there's this
memory.
duality that seems implicit to me with backgrounds that I don't see many other people capitalize on. Like
Hmm.
you were a pilgrim and now you're an adventurer. And that means either A, you can act as a pilgrim still, right? Or B, you are no longer a pilgrim and now that you're like antithetical to that. Like you have like bounced off of that to become an adventurer or interest
Hmm.
like a combination of those two.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think the sort of religious overarching theme of it is fits really well with that, right? You see all sorts of tales about people's faith and their questioning of it, and they're moving
mm,
back and forth between
mm.
these vastly different moral landscapes, whilst sort of maintaining the same sort of ethics between them. But what matters is internal and what one's believes, at least for the character or this character would be. Uh, yeah, be
Well,
cool.
give me the DA because this might actually give us direction. We might also hate it, which is
Okay.
also clarifying. Sometimes if it's like if the answer's wrong, it kind of tells you what the right answer is. If you're like, oh, I hate that, that's stupid. It would be better if. Cool. It's also doing its
Hmm.
job. You're you're building your character that way too. So what do we get on the D8?
Hmm. Three. Eager answer seeker to protector of secrets.
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting. So there's
So the eager answer seeker sort of leans me over to the sort of savior aspect, like sort of hitting on the angle of which one of these belief systems is true, who is
mm,
lying here,
mm,
what what am I ought to follow, and what am I meant to bring back to my people, and then th- to protector of secrets, sort of leans me the other way, back to the exploitative angle of uh I need a I need to figure out the secrets of how these people are getting away with this, you know, and implement it. It's interesting.
it is it
Mm,
is fun to start with like the overly optimistic like saccharine character
mm-hmm,
gets way less fun to be around after a few sessions, right? If it's one node. But if they
mm-hmm,
start there and then they have some experiences and maybe make some death saves or lose some friends, and all of a sudden they go like they started there and now they become this nihilist, like, and have a crisis of faith because they were the coolest kid on the block because they could cast healing word, and for the first time in their lives, like that wasn't enough to turn the tide. Then
yeah,
like yeah, or I keep making it a cleric because we're doing religious stuff, but we'll talk about a class in a sec.
yeah,
But that's interesting, and it's funny. It also resonated with me with like that and safely return with it, right? Because like seek this thing out, and now you're responsible for it, right? The story doesn't end. The hero's journey is a circle. It doesn't
mm-hmm,
stop at the top when you find the thing. Then you have to like come back with it,
yeah,
and now you're in charge of it. You're responsible for it. You find the most powerful. Find the nuke. Now there's nukes. The world is different.
yeah, yeah,
Cool. You have
def
vouchsafed the nuke. That's not the end of the
definitely,
story. That's just the beginning
yeah,
of another one.
100%, yeah, and that's and I think that's the safely return with it part's interesting, right? Because if we are hitching on this angle that the person is figuring out how this current belief structure or this one that's being forced upon this group of people that he's going to return to is wrong. Perhaps a lot of people had figured this out, but they're just hunted down by that group and
Mhm.
executed, right? So it's about getting it, this idea, this proof, and making their way back. Um, that's sweet. Okay. I feel like that's got me closer to what I think the arc will be. I wanna I'm just going back over these first three in my
Mhm.
mind,
Mhm.
just in case I feel like I'm missing something interesting. So far we have um we want to uncover a sacred relic and return safely with it. Uh due to a fervent conversion that left them eager to act. And this eagerness, uh, I'm also eager to answer. I'm an eager answer seeker and a protector of secrets. To a protector of secrets.
Ooh, I didn't realize. Yeah, you hit eager twice.
Yeah.
That
So yeah, that made me
yeah.
want to think. Why
And
is
so
this guy
that's
so eager?
that's the yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting how
Why?
the dice do stuff. This is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the magic to it.
Where's this? Yeah, this eagerness. Um, it seems like a really excitable individual. Uh, the eagerness to, oh, perhaps, wait, sorry, this was really staring us in the face, and I think the word eager really triggered it. They're pilgrims, so they're leaving somewhere, and they're really eager to go on this pilgrimage. What, there must be something making them want to leave the place that they were.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so like we're thinking of a pilgrim that there's something out there that they want. There also might be something here that they need to leave,
hmm
you know? Um uh and they want to leave something that left them with this taste for knowledge.
Mm.
Um, Perhaps they themselves are a prophet of sorts, right?
Mm.
Um, this might be a this might so in my D&D world in Strata, because it's like uh past a cataclysm. One of the ways I deal with any cleric, warlock, or um sorry, cleric, warlock, or paladin is one of the ways that they can build out their character or their faith is as a prophet for a religion that hasn't been founded yet, because there
Mm.
aren't many. There's not a lot. People are still in that sort of lower druidic, more pre um, pre-agriculture sort of lifestyle, right? It's more people look for more brisk relief in idols and such than uh, overarching gods and deities and whatnot. Yeah. So when they wish to engage with a patron or a god or something like this, they are called forth in dreams and visions by a melt of celestial energy somewhere in the world. So as they are born, they are just they have this place uh, dotted into their memory across their dreams, across their thoughts, and they'll have flashes to it and a sense of what direction to travel in if they are to travel in that direction. Mechanically, this is like an advantage in trying to navigating towards there. And this could be like they're on the other side of the world, right? And like they can just meditate and think, what direction do I have to travel in to get to this place? And they'll be assisted in finding that direction, right? Um, Perhaps it's something like that. Perhaps they want to figure out what's in their own mind, or yeah, that's what this is. The eagerness is sort of striking in me.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's kind of perfect. So what are you what kind of class are we thinking of here?
oh, okay.
Because that is, I mean, that would make you eager and fervent, and that would convert you, right? Just like a relentless, sort of undefined divine spark, just like calling to you to go to a place. Like, I need to get to this thing. Um,
I guess Paladin, Warlock, and Cleric are like the ones that are most
okay.
obvious. I'm just thinking if any of the other classes could be interesting. I guess you could throw in Druid in that mix. Um, I guess one that I'm trying to think of one that might subvert the expectation and be of some interest. Pilgrim kind of goes with Ranger a little bit, I
Oh,
think.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
Maybe Artificer, right? And I know that this is sort of uh out of left field, um, but the sort of eagerness for knowledge and uh like I'm thinking, and the sort of religious aspects. I'm thinking of pilgrimages in the Middle Ages. I'm thinking of like alchemists that
mm,
traveled the world and they were interested in plants and animals from across the lands to sort of integrate into their alchemical knowledge and materials and things of this nature. I'm kind of liking Artificer, but more
that's
as like a
that's really interesting to
more,
me.
yeah, more as like a Silk Road traveler, you know?
Yeah, because God, players make a character that's like interested and curious and wants to see
Yeah.
what's around the corner and like for reasons, right? They could just be curious as a baseline, but also like I I'm seeking the sacred relic and I'm not quite sure what it is because like all of
Mhm.
the alchemical texts have called it the Philosopher's Stone, but that means different things and it could be could convert lead into gold, but that might also be a metaphor and it could be a rock of phosphorus from distilling urine for 17 years or like
Yes.
whatever the hell,
Yes, exactly that.
like
This also taps into that sort of exploitative angle, right? So I was talking about like a Middle Ages pilgrimage traveler. You can also think of like a snake oil salesman out in the Old West,
mm,
going from place to place and describing this tonic that will solve these people's cures, or a slick talking
yeah.
yeah, like a slick talking salesman aspect of it. They're like, oh, I'm gonna go through all these pilgrimages. Think of the best one. Think of the best place I saw, and recreate it using my alchemical knowledge, my alchemical and artificial knowledge. Um,
Because it is, because like an
yeah.
artificer is magic. It's like magic tech, but there is this like, technology versus faith, like reason conflict that's kind of
Hmm.
we're like skirting around the edges of. It feels like
Yeah.
if they're out there to like build the best or I don't know, you this like this sacred relic might be some sort of like mechanism, right? Like it is
Hmm.
some sort of like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
astrolabe or clock or just
Hmm.
whatever the thing, like the key that opens the divine gates, right? And it's just like
Yeah.
people are looking for the saint's bones because it's a skeleton key, but like no, it's legit. Like I don't know, it's got gears and cogs and springs and stuff.
Hmm.
Like it's not it's technology, not magic, you dummies. Like
Yeah. There was so in Barcelona, the main architect from that region, right? Very famous, this guy named Gaudi. He made the
mm,
Sagrada Familia, he made Parc Gaudi and all these other buildings that are they're um they're really inspired places to go to, right? They're not like Renaissance places. They're not like modern age uh constructs that like they're obsessed with like geometries and stuff rather than intricate design. They're not like the sort of Middle Eastern things that are geometric and fractal and stuff, but it's this other thing that's clearly has aspects of interest from all of them, aspects of interest from all of these different sort of subsects of uh, archi architectness. What's the word for that? Anyway, subsects of
architecture. Yeah.
architecture, that's the word. My brain kept saying say archaeology. I'm like, that's not how that works. Um, yeah, yeah, these all these subsects. And one of the things he did was he would look at different plants and murals and sort of um reimagine them in architecture. So the sort of spires and columns that we're used to in like um the Renaissance. Instead, he builds them out in this more natural structure that's at odd angles, like trees and things of this nature.
It's
So
very
he
so
looked,
I've never been, right? But I've seen
mhm,
a lot of pictures and it's like it's very organic. It is like
yes,
plant and
exactly.
like almost like fungal in some
Hmm.
places. Like you could come on, put on that cathedral like in the Underdark and it would be like, oh, this makes sense. This is how the Drow
Yeah,
would build things. Like,
exactly. And
yeah.
it's and the idea of this architect looking going on a pilgrimage, seeing these different sites, and is interested in nature and things like this to manifest within their own construct or building. Is I like that artificer angle on that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's
yeah,
cool. That's
trying to.
cool.
Mhm. Okay.
Give me a D4. This is going to be our friendly faction. And maybe we belong to them, but maybe we're just, have a relationship with them.
Okay, I got one. Sudsea Sanctums,
Oh, good.
a network of tavern keepers on popular pilgrimage routes who share information.
Nice. So yeah,
That's very good.
this is from our earlier conversation, but I did a big portion of the Appalachian Trail. You
Mhm.
did a portion of the El Camino, and in Europe, it's a much more civilized prospect. I imagine. Did you do much camping? Were you sleeping out rough, or no? You were in the
No,
hostels
no,
and
no,
the
no.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Hot meal
Yeah,
every
yeah, yeah.
night, pint if you want
Yeah,
one. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely. We didn't go that far from the city either, so
Okay, yeah.
it's yeah, we were doing all right.
Yeah, it's a different experience. So and like I imagine in like my medieval fantasy mindset, like every whatever days worth, every 12 to 18 to 24 miles, there's a tavern. There's
Hmm.
a waypoint, and those guys know everything because they're the ones talking to everybody. And the good,
Hmm.
especially for like researching whatever tourism or architecture or
Hmm.
all of the above. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
good people to know.
Yeah, this also reflects back on the character, like the type of person that would have these friends and is like an artificer. They seem to me as a little bit of a well-off individual, the
Mm,
type of person to have the mindset to be, I'm gonna be the one to do this thing that like is a folklore thing to everyone else. Of course, this exists in all like stratas of people, but like that sort of that little bit of ego to in their artificerness and knowing all these people and having good networks across. these sorts of places, you could place them quite well off, I'd say. I think equally you could put them in like more poverty stricken. Maybe they worked in one of these taverns and got these connections. That as an artificer, they're more of like a cook, or
Mm.
something like that, you know?
It's what you almost rolled the
Maybe.
cook, and I was thinking for a minute, like, I've done it, but I haven't done it like publicly of like cross pollinating two backgrounds because
Yeah,
then you
yeah,
get
yeah.
like some real interesting stuff. There's actually the last number 50. It's not so that this was supposed to be done about 8 days ago, but I miscalculated. I thought I would get better and faster and more efficient
Hmm.
at doing this because that's how most things work. But pouring ideas out of your mind turns out you actually slow down when you've already poured out 1,000 and you're trying to come
Hmm.
up with new, more interesting ones. Anyway, the last
It's the
one.
same. It's the
Oh,
same thing we described in our last discussion about how like the more things you have, the more themes you have to apply to each one of them to differentiate them.
yes,
So you,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
the becomes the narrative cost increases the more stuff you have, right?
Because you start
Yeah.
differentiating the pilgrim from the acolyte from the cult, and it's an interesting challenge. Like I'm very glad I
Hmm.
took it on. But the last
Hmm.
one, uh, I've messed with what it's titled, but weirdo. So it is because it's all alphabetical. So it's like Gonzo, it's weirdo. It's like going to be the weirdest, all the crazy crap that I thought of that didn't quite fit anything else, like made even weirder still. And like in my mind, that's the multiplier one. Like if you, I got something, if because you're a pretty creative fellow, if you don't mind me saying so, like you're bringing a
Oh,
lot of ideas to the
thanks.
table, but some people out there are going to end up with something that's like a little more vanilla than they want.
Hmm.
Here's a basket of craziness, like just a little spice from the cabinet. This is the one crazy spicy one. Um, so it's interesting. So you could be tight with the Sudsy sanctums because you do work for stay, right? You're poor,
Hmm.
you're washing dishes in the back to like pay for your night. But
Hmm.
another way to be popular with all the bartenders along this route is to be a good tipper.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So if you're well funded,
May-
uh
Maybe if we're going for like that slick talking, um, I'm struck by this because of the word sudsy. But maybe because you're like a slick, like salesman, like sort of evoking the sort of 1900s American entrepreneur
mhm.
angle. Um, you sell you like all of the taverns use your soap that you made as an artificer.
Hmm.
Like you're the soap guy, and everyone knows you for being the soap guy. Um,
So
or like
you're
some other thing that they all use.
God, because you're on this
Um,
Pilgrim's Pass because it's your market.
yeah, and you're like you're checking in or something, yeah, or
Interesting.
like yeah, and the way you're connected into this faction is you can walk into any one of these says, oh yeah, by the way, I'm the soap guy. And they're like, "Oh, you're the soap guy?" And then you get into talking and you're like, "Yeah, about like what's the how's the packages been? Have they been coming on time? Also, have you seen anything weird in the area?" And then that's how you can like tap into getting the information.
Because that, I mean, it's
Um,
we don't think of it in these terms today, but like that's chemistry. Soap making is chemistry. You're
yeah.
dealing with like
Yeah.
volatile compounds.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
I'm sure it was a
Hmm.
little, it was even more dangerous back in like people were, I'm sure, asphyxiating themselves, cooking up lye and yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I like that a lot. All right,
Um,
we're the sub, we're this, we're the soap guy artificer. And like
yeah.
it feels like I have to be I have to actively try not to make a charlatan every time I make a character. It's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
always right there of like, yeah, this like
yeah.
cynical approach to things.
No, I'm he's a clean cut soap. He's a clean cut soap guy. I also like it because soap is something an artificer can do a level one. Like I can role play the soap guy from day one,
Mhm. And
you know?
it's in the PHB, baby. No one ever buys it, but there's I don't know, I forget, I don't even know what it costs because I barely sell it. But like, you could buy,
Yeah,
you can get soap from the
yeah.
what,
And
128, whatever that page is.
yeah, and you can make fun of all your party members for stinking, like all the
Yeah,
time.
that's popular. It's because like God, what was it? Oh, it was Shogun, which is I highly recommend.
Mhm.
Um, but in like the second episode, she's like, "You should really take a bath." He's like, I already took a bath this month. You want me to get the flocks or whatever?" Like, there was a mindset of like bathing too much was not good for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Give me a
brutal.
D6. Let's drill
Okay.
down into a friendly non-player character.
Okay, I got two. You want to take this one?
Sure, yeah, most of these are impronounceable. Fantasy names, baby. Garthew Pryor, an owl-eyed proprietor of a shop that buys, sells, and trades old books, scrolls, and maps. Oh, I mean that's I want to be friends with that guy in game and
Yeah.
in real life.
Yeah. Garth O'Brien, owl-eyed proprietor of a store. Um, I'm thinking of like a um like my master Oogway sort of guy, right? That
Mm,
taught me the basics of artificery. And he has the shop and he sells all the stuff and he's a sort of tinkerer of sorts, and I picked up my skills from him. Um, Yeah, so I spent so on one of the character angles that we've discussed, I spent my days cleaning up the taverns and serving people, and at night I would be working with Garth Breyer as his assistant on all these like different artificery projects. And one day I make soap. I become the soap guy. I'm tapped into the taverns. I spread my soap around, and I'm like, I gotta go take the soap trail.
hmm
Um,
And
um,
there's this interesting thing of like growing up on the pilgrim path, right?
mhm.
But you're not the destination. So there's this like a constant parade of people coming and going, and
hmm
that's maybe your main source of income, right? Like the tavern's doing really well because 300 miles that way there's some sacred relic or whatever, and
hmm
like that would just be like abstract, but in front of you for your entire life. And so one day you're like, you know what? Like there's a separation between these people and you, but one day you're like, I'm going to be one of these people. I'm going to take the trip, and I'm going to bring the thing here. So this is the place people come. Because right now, this is just like in the front of Garth's shop. I see like all like those like tourist brochure, little fold out cartoony map things or whatever. And that's like
Yeah,
his most popular item. And like the artificer spell books and stuff in the back are, dusty, and, it's only a select clientele that actually buys them.
yeah.
Um,
S- So
hmm.
let's. Oh, I was gonna say let's return to the relic and think what that can be, but then I looked at the table, and as your
uh,
tool does often so well, it's right there in front of you.
yeah,
So
what do we get for a D10? Because this might do it for us.
okay, okay. 1 second. Is there anything we want to do with Garthew before we continue? I'm just thinking. Hmm.
I like tying him into
Maybe.
like either he's an artificer or he's got the not the recipes. He's got like blueprints and stuff in the back. I guess recipes too. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
alchemical, like
Yeah.
you were always in the back of his shop reading, and like you found the recipe for soap.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. We'll lock. Uh, I'll lock that. I think. Okay. So the D10. I got a one,
Ooh, sometimes
and
I let people re-roll ones sometimes. Because yeah,
okay.
read this out because it's like more of a trinket than a magic item.
Archival sketchbook contains charcoal drawings of several holy sites and directions to them. I like that for the character we're sort of hitting. He could have also, or they could have also found that in Garthew's shop, right? One day
Oh,
and picked
100%.
that up. Um, or maybe, uh, as they worked in the tavern and they would meet people going up and down the pilgrimage. They made it themselves, right? Like they would talk to people and then draw this out, and because they're an artificer, they're used to making blueprints and ideas for certain places. They'll draw out this holy site, and discuss how they got there and came from them. Um,
Mm.
Equivalently to the thing we talked at the very start about them wanting to make their own holy site. Having the blueprints might be really nice because they're like obsessed with like what is it about these places that make them special and how do we add on to them. Um,
I just had a flash of
yeah,
like the jump from like I don't have the art history terminology, but from like medieval like flat to like having the perspective, right? That was like
perspective.
someone had to invent that. We take that for granted
Yeah,
now, but like the ability to like
I,
portray a three-dimensional object in two-dimensional space, like to and like so often those the first versions of that are holy sites or cathedrals.
Yeah.
being portrayed. So that's interesting. And like
Oh,
having that be
I remember I saw one of the first pictures painted ever that like used proper perspective. Uh, and I saw a bunch of people around it. I forget which gallery I was in, but I remember it was somewhere in Italy, and I saw it, and then everyone was around it, like really gawking at how amazing it was. And I was like, this looks mid. Like, what's going on? And I just asked somebody, and they had to explain to me that this guy was the first person. You know that house in the background? That's how far away it would look if you stood where the painting was taken. This guy was the first person to do that. And
right.
yeah, it's one of those things where you grow up in like an era of photography or with some other technology. It doesn't even it's so normalized you don't even realize how amazing something is.
And I find
Uh
a lot of art is like that. Without context is very difficult.
you know the Mona Lisa, why everyone loves it so much, and it looks mid. It should look mid to you, right? If you actually think the Mona Lisa looks great right now, you got caught up in the psyop, right? Because
Psyop.
um the
It's the Da
psyop.
Vinci Code.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
the you're an MK Ultra victim. Um, so so, it used to look a lot better. It used to look, as it was described before, it was like had such dynamism and beauty to it. Um, in the way that art critiques would write about it, you can see this, but it was damaged at some point and we see the one that was fixed from this damage. I
hmm.
believe this is true. There's something happened to it. Maybe it was like light damaging or something, but it's altered from its heyday as being this amazing thing. But it's kept its reputation. Um,
You know what's so
uh,
interesting? So art, I mean, the painting, maybe not charcoal, well, maybe charcoal too, but art is
mhm,
also chemistry, right?
yeah.
All of these,
Mhm,
like a lot of these classic paintings, especially like those like Dutch masters, everything's so dark. But like
mhm,
that's because they put 50 coats of varnish on it and it made it really depth and protected it. But that stuff ambers over time. So
mhm,
it goes from transparent to like essentially opaque if you give it enough time and it like shifts all the colors. So like what you're looking at is totally different. And it's funny, interestingly enough, the flip side of that, all of these like classical statues that are so like minimalist and white marble, they painted those things. Those things could have been
yeah.
clown shoes gaudy, right? But we have this idea of like what classical art looks like, and it's so
Yeah.
refined. It's like, nah, dude, you're looking at the plaster, the paint peeled off of it.
Hmm.
Like,
It's the same thing with like the knight in shining armor, where that armor, like they have good evidence that they probably painted over a lot of it at times, right? Like, but they were just like soldiers going into war, and they were like, what did you?" They were just putting like shit posts on their pieces of armor before they ran out. It was just memes that you would look at before you died. Um,
they were just people. People are people,
yeah, yeah,
man.
yeah,
They're gonna
yeah, yeah,
shitpost. It's not. We think we invented all of this stuff. Like,
yeah.
give me another D10 roll.
Okay,
That is
okay.
really evocative and interesting. And and from the dungeon master side of thing, like, oh yeah, you have a map to 3 levels worth of dungeon locations starting out. Awesome. Like, cool.
Hmm.
Your character knows where all the things are that I want you to go to. Yes. And that's, I mean, that one of those clearly is going to contain the relic that we're looking for.
Yeah, and
Uh,
just a pilgrimaging campaign. I think it's really interesting because I know I haven't done this enough, and I probably should have done this when I ran the labyrinth. But having like more reoccurring NPCs that like you met at this dungeon site or this site, and then like 3 sites later you see them, they took a completely different path to you, and you
mm,
meet them again, and you see what's
mm.
happened to them and things of this nature. That's pretty cool. Uh,
Yeah, I
that's
mean that's
I've
why I love factions, right? Because it's like a stand-in. It's like a meta NPC where it's like you can keep
hmm
it's the tavern keepers all have something in common and know you at least by reputation, if not actually, because they're all part of the same group. But like a guy like Arthur Breyer, if he's a shop in your hometown and you never go back there after level 1 or whatever, this level 0 funnel, then like okay, he's not worth much. But if he's on the pilgrimage path, right? Maybe he closed up shop,
hmm
or maybe he's got a cart, right? He's the freaking I don't
Ah,
know if you had the
that's
Scholastic book fair in in England, but it was like
yeah.
a traveling like book sale in elementary school that was like every 80s and
Oh.
90s child's like best well every nerdy 80s and 90s child's uh cherished memory. But like yeah, if he's just
Yeah.
like plotting along and you just like you find him in the next town because you spent a week in the dungeon and came back to the next town and he's just been like slowly making his way. he's got a donkey now in my imagination pulling this
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
cart of books.
definitely. Definitely. A good
Mhm.
donkey. A good friend that you can find in.
Mhm. Yeah, the
Doesn't
donkey has a
stop
name
talking
and
to you
he's
even on the long
exactly,
road.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Give me one
So
more D10 because I think
so
maybe
I'm
we'll
I'm
get our
gonna take
MacGuffin.
I wrote the sorry, no, I rolled um a D100 dice. So I rolled this one at the start too. It was a 40. We'll go with four.
Sure.
Um Traveling translator.
Mm,
Converts any language to and from the common tongue for 10 minutes per day.
that's useful. I could see that as is it Pentecost? I'm not up and up on my Christian theology, but like there's some miracle where all of a sudden everybody can understand everybody because
Ah,
the Holy Spirit or something.
yeah.
But that would be
That's
a miraculous thing to a certain thing. But like everyone perceives it as some sort of divine magic, but you understand it's a electronic is maybe the wrong word, but
yeah.
it's a dictionary, and it's got 10 minutes of
Yeah.
charge, and then it's got a
Yeah.
the solar cell has to it's an old like calculator that has to
It's
charge up
a
again.
definitely it's a yeah, and it definitely ties into the you being an artificer and going from place to place. I think one thing that might be interesting and to tie into the sketchbook as well. So in addition to the drawings and directions, it can be on like the languages and descriptions that are in each of these places. And in the sort of setting that I'm sort of that has been placed in my mind is that in this location there's these conflicting religions, and it's been a recent thing, and perhaps this person, this character, one of the reasons why they're interested in this knowledge and they wish to seek it out, not just the flora and fauna for their soap, not just the sacred relic, but the other interests that they have about each one of these individual holy sites to piece together, like what was the true faith here before, or like in what order was these locations placed here. What is who does this land really belong to? What are the honest what are the older beliefs of his people, things of this nature, like a place that's been like conquered multiple times and written over, and now you have this one dial that you can use to go between these places and figure out what was right. And this links back to the fervent conversions that were happening that caused you to be eager to act. It makes you realize that all of these belief systems that people tend to hold have this ephemerality to it, and you're trying to iron that out into something real. Um,
I was getting real like Tower of Babel vibes, right? Like there used to
yeah.
be one unified thing, and then
Mm-hmm.
something happened. We got too close to the sun, or we pissed off,
Mm-hmm.
or we lost the true way, or whatever. And now that it's fractured and there's conflict, so if we could go back to that, and isn't there's some alchemical thing too? It's not is it lingua franca, or is there some
So,
there is like some alchemical idea of like the true like the language of God or whatever. Like if you know the one like the true name, maybe I'm conflating different belief systems though.
lingua franca was a a language used during the medieval period for merchants from different parts of the world to communicate to each other.
It's like common, right? I think there's
Yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
like alchemical, and again, half of their stuff is like metaphors, but or it's like hermetic, but like there's some idea of like the true name of a thing gives you power. That's like in a lot of
Yeah,
magic systems.
yeah. You get that from a lot of the Kabbalah texts,
Mm-hmm.
in esoteric understandings, like the angels and demons, and they have all these hierarchies and names. And they are to be their names imply some sort of power or understanding over them.
Very interesting. And yeah, it is like for a pilgrim, that would be super useful. I think, was it an old WebDM video? I'm seeing it might have been Jim Davis. I think it was Jim Davis, but someone was talking about how like in the olden times in medieval Europe, if you were going on a pilgrimage or like you were like the Crusaders, I think it was actually the Crusades, they were like, all right, head south until you can't understand the people anymore
Hmm.
and then turn left. Because
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
the dialect would shift. Like it wasn't just like these people speak English and these people speak French. It's like, oh no, there's a transitional period where you can still communicate, and then eventually you get to a certain point, like you're close enough to the coast where like these people are just not speaking anything you can comprehend anymore. Cool, I've gone far south enough. Now I go west. It's
Yeah, yeah,
just,
yeah. That was yeah, I remember I think I watched the same video. It
it's
was
just yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was very yeah, it's very insightful. In the way that people used to just pilgrimage around back then, it used to be pretty yeah, it's pretty wild. Um
Because you had like guidebooks, but it would be like over here, these are the people whose heads are below their shoulders, and here there be dragons. Like you had no freaking idea what's going
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Uh
okay, do you
okay,
feel
yeah.
pretty good about this character before I was about to switch hats to the
I
DM side of things, but how are you feeling?
I really like this character, I think. Yeah, they're solid PC. I feel as if there's stuff that's open, but in a good way, right? Like
Mm.
things you can explore as you travel around. Uh, yeah, but they're really sort of attached or rooted in this world that we've described. Yeah, good PC, solid.
I think one of like the key aspects for me of like that grounding is like the soap, which you brought, which is not yeah, you brought that to this, and it's like so like specific and
Yeah, yeah.
like simple, and it's just like yeah, my guy like traveled around selling soap, and then he had some sort of like conversion experience, and now he's on an adventure to do stuff, but like
Mm-hmm.
he still spent a decade selling soap, like that's formative
Yeah,
to who he is as a person, right? Like
he's still a soap individual.
and
Yeah.
like as a player, I'd be looking for like because all those, especially like an old school play, like all of those weird things, like why is this? Why can't I buy this? It's like because you can do 100 things with it if you think about it. It's a piece of soap, like you can mark the doors as you go through the
Mm-hmm.
dungeon. You can like slick up a thing. Like cleaning stuff is going to be valuable. And
Mm-hmm.
like I don't even know. There's some,
Definitely.
and I like the idea of like we're looking for botanical things too. I didn't catch that the first time
Mm.
you said he was looking for plants, but like, oh, this smells pretty. I'll bet I'll sell more soap with this like lavender scent or whatever it
Yeah.
may be.
Definitely. And like there's like interesting interactions between soap and stuff. Like if you throw a soap at a certain type of ooze, they just fizzle up
Mm,
and become like concrete or
mm.
something. Like things like that I think would be pretty fun to play
Yeah,
with.
yeah, yeah. Just like
Yeah.
breaking up like the viscosity of yeah, yeah, yeah. Or just like
Hmm.
advantage on like save for a disease or something because you actually wash
Hmm.
your hands and unlike the rest of these ruffians.
Yeah. Yeah, you go to your ally and then you're like, yo, rub you before we walk into this dungeon, rub your daggers with soap in case we see a slime, you'll be able
Yeah.
to
It's
cut through it more easily.
it's an emulsifier. It's like what does that mean? It's like
Yeah.
don't worry about it. It's an alchemical. It's an artificer thing.
Hmm. Yeah,
I
yeah.
cast cleanse.
Yeah, yeah. An artificer as a pilgrim. The more I think about it, because when I was thinking of cleric and warlock and paladin, one of the things that bothered me and didn't want me to go with that is because it's too you, you almost because it's so on brand, you almost lose flavor
Mm,
because you or as a pilgrim because you don't have like as many layers as you could.
mhm, mhm.
But I yeah, the more I think about it, artificer has just as much reason to go on a pilgrimage because they're interested in things and items and stuff like that. It's
And having that
yeah.
like hook is not the right word, but like connector, like if a background like this gives you opportunity to role play potentially with other party members, if there is a cleric in the party, right? Then
Hmm.
like you are going to have an interesting relationship with that character, and your backstories are going to connect in ways or interact in ways or potentially conflict in ways that is like going to be interesting to like have conversations in character with that person.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's cool. Let's
yeah,
lock it in. Is it? It's DM time.
all right, so we're gonna turn the page. Boop.
Yeah.
And you're gonna roll 4d6 down the line, or you can roll them one at a time because sometimes that's
All right.
easier to keep track.
One at a
Uh,
time.
but
Okay.
now, depending on your game and your table and your collaborative style, I mean, I've actually there are people playing this as its own game now, which was deeply satisfying. Like my buddy Kelf,
Hmm.
like they sat down and rolled up characters and like enjoyed it so much that they just like didn't bring D&D into it and just like played out, figured out how all these stories would connect and interact.
It
Uh,
is fun in and of itself, I think. Oh, I at least I often find it. It's the same thing as like world building, right? But
Mhm.
like often it's hard to world build with others without like a tool like this, and then when you bring it in, it becomes like really, really satisfying
Yeah.
to like bounce the ideas.
And I
Um,
tried really hard to give like in as a condensed a way as possible, like give everything just like a little bit extra so it's interesting and like sticky so it'll connect to other things.
hmm
But I didn't want it to be I think what your buddy was expecting when what most things do is like it's like too restrictive. It's
hmm
like I don't want this to finish a thing for you. I want these to be a series of beginnings, a series of sparks, right? It's that it's
Yeah.
explosive, it's tinder, it's
So,
energy that creates heat. There's not I want you to be able to go play the game afterwards with these things and like, oh, all of this stuff makes sense in the context of the game. Like I am happy that I know the bartender and the
mhm.
bookseller because I don't even know yet how I'm going to interact with them or what the DM
Yeah.
is going to do to use them, but like it
Yeah.
is
What
gameable content. It's not just like a
one
cool boondoggle.
100%, like you're the soap guy. You show up to a place, the past three taverns you've been to, you've had your soap in, your party's tired, and you guys have been really attacked on this trail, and you're finally ready to have a rest. They're all ready for you to pull up and do your soap guy thing, and you're like, hey, you use my certain type of soap, don't you? You use spiky studs, right? And then spiky suds, and they're like, oh, our delivery hasn't been here for this much time. Oh, you're the guy. I tried to use it and I got infected and I had to amputate my arm. You're the reason I'm an amputee. And then suddenly you're kicked out and there's so much flavor that comes out of it. Things of this nature, right?
Everybody wants to
It's pretty
start a
good.
business. Everyone wants money to be pouring in for their D&D campaign. No one wants to do customer service. No one thinks
Yeah.
about that's not part of their fantasy. But all of a sudden
Exactly,
it's like,
right?
well, you have customers and customers have needs and not all of them
Mm.
are logical.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%. Your
yeah.
soap tastes bad.
Oh.
We couldn't use it in the
We
when I
switched to
get
the
too
other guy. It tastes way better.
Yeah. When I get too foamed up in the shower, it gets in my mouth. I guess this time it would be the barrel, right? It gets in my mouth, and you're just like, that's not what's intended. Oh no! And they have like all their teeth missing. Just it doesn't make very good. It's so
Uh,
bright you can use it on your teeth and your body and your arms.
yeah, yeah, it's the 3-in-1 stuff.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, it's like some like, old timey, it's like caustic as hell, right? It's like, no, that's for the dishes, not your skin. You're supposed to wear gloves, like or whatever. Um,
Yeah. Solid.
all right.
Okay.
I don't even think
D
we need an
DM time.
antagonistic organization now because we just made one. But what did you get on
Okay.
what'd you get on the D6?
I rolled it. I got a one.
That's
Shrouded kin. Protect sacred sites by obscuring their paths and spreading rumors of false locations.
mm,
This is so good. This is so good because it links back to the charcoal script that the character has, as in like at some point you read through it, and hmm, perhaps if I had something like this at the top of a game, right at the start of a campaign, I'd tell the player you have knowledge of X number of locations and then a name associated with each one of the locations. Okay. And then the names that as they travel through, they realize that some of these are wrong.
mm.
And those names of those people can pop up. And if they're conscious of this fact, they'll be able to interact and unveil this shrouded kin, things of this nature. I mean, that's the first thing that strikes me. Linking it back to the charcoal book.
Yeah, so
Um,
you have their propaganda or you have the real thing and that's no longer like the sign says something different because they're trying to send you like how LaSalle? I never say that word right, but the painted caves, the cave paintings, like
mhm,
people were going there and just like carbon dioxide, just people being there and breathing was like damaging these like sacred sites. So they like made
mhm.
another one. So if you go to visit, you're
Ah,
actually going to like the replica, right? Like if you go to visit the
uh,
Mona Lisa, it's it's fixed up for you, right? So
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
these people realize that like a parade of tourists going through their sacred site is bad news, so they've created dummy ones, and that is your like
Hmm.
revelation of like, no, I want to find the real one and get the real thing and bring it because it's important to whatever
Hmm.
is important to me. Um,
Hmm.
so
And
yeah.
of course, the false locations, they can be like more deadly, perhaps more inviting. Perhaps there's like some sort of creatures or um perhaps you wander through a grove and the plants there leave you susceptible to more spiritual condition, right? Things of this nature,
Mm,
where
mm,
they're able to convince people more towards their path or their beliefs, perhaps because they have this sort of constructed ancient site that they're able to convert people beneath their notice, um, right? Things of this nature.
God, yeah. And
Obs-
imagine like your low level adventures like gear up and like overland travel montage to the dungeon, and they're like ready to rock, and they get there, and like the goblins are just like it's like a haunted house, right? It's like dudes in makeup or something. It's just like, what
yeah.
is this? Is not this is the thing. This is like, and like they go and they've fight their way with like these guys with like Nerf swords or the equivalent medieval, and they find the MacGuffin in the center of the maze, and it's like not it's like a carnival toy or something, and they're like something is wrong here, and this like
Mhm.
whole construct of like a fake tourist trap version of a dungeon is there to obscure
Yeah.
the real one. And like I just
Yeah, yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to see what the players would do with that. Like, okay, what do
Mm,
we how do we make sense of this? What does this
yeah.
mean for this world?
I, I really love that idea that that you mentioned, where like they're obscuring us from the sacred site to protect the sacred site for some reason. And I think the player character can split into the two ways again of this exploit. I want to be, oh, I've been inspired to go exploit them, or I've inspired to go save them. Where just like
Mm,
you take it in and you understand and you buy into the sort of understanding of this group, where like sacred sites are even more holy than I once thought and must have this protection. Or that the spiritual people, they can be inspired by anything. It doesn't even matter
mm,
if it's the real true natured um icon or holy site. It just matters to have some positive effect on people, you know. It's like the way those, have you ever watched, oh, this is my favorite part of American culture, um have you ever seen the Long Island Medium?
yeah, not only yes, I know people who have gone to her because I am from Long
Really?
Island originally. I'm from Long
Sweet.
Island. I'm not from that
Sweet.
part of
Okay.
Long Island, but it's not a huge island. Yes, I know.
Dude,
I'm
my
Teresa.
family my
Yeah,
family loves her show. Okay.
yeah.
They're like, she's like huge. We're like, they're so hyped on her, dude. She's like the American. Anyway, so
That's my
she,
America. That's where those are my people. That's where I come from.
yeah.
Not the
But
psychic part
like
of it, but the Long Island part of it.
I think we've had these long discussions about how some that in some ways you can justify her if she is cognizant, say what she is doing is like, I don't want to offend anybody. I guess, say what she is doing is true, or say what she knows what she's doing is false, if that's the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is still some ethical ground to be able to say that what she's doing is right. She's bringing people peace. So what she's doing is okay. And even though from some angles it may look exploitative, she's actually putting people at ease. So she's doing the right thing, right? This medium sort of stuff, like connecting with the dead or whatnot. And the character might have that same sort of um accepting of like, wow, these spiritual sites, whether they're real or fake or whatever, they just exist to put people at ease.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm ought to make another one and perhaps profit off of it, you know. um it's interesting. I like the sort of it digs deeper or pushes or gently incentivizes the players to consider more of this angle which this character sort of exists in,
Yeah,
this
because it
dynamic.
does. It's funny. It feels like a big risk. I don't know if you would get the payoff, but it does feel like a good counterbalance to like the murder hobo smash and grab mentality of so many adventures of just like get the thing. And it's like, well, and
Yeah,
now what? Now you're responsible for this thing. Like there's a reason we had this hidden and buried, right? Like I love a good
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
I understand where the bad guy was coming from now, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
Oh,
this person lied to me, so that means the opposite must be the case, right?
right, right.
Right. I
It's
was
such a
lied to, so yeah.
yeah. I mean, we could talk. I'm not quite sure what mediumship is, right? Like, I don't know. I don't believe in it, but I definitely
Yeah.
don't believe that we're the people in this time, in this place, who know what's going on, right? Everyone else has been wrong, but we've got it all figured out now. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm definitely open to the idea of like other layers of reality connected to this one, be it, what
Hmm.
quantum physics makes no sense. And it's the highest understanding of what we have, right? But like our brain doesn't, even though our brain uses quantum physics to work, our brain doesn't comprehend that. Like no one understands what's actually happening. And if you
Hmm.
think you do, go look up the double slit experiment. The universe does not make sense. Maybe it's a simulation, but that's all. That's just a metaphor. Like our best explanation is like maybe it's a video game that someone else is
It's a,
playing.
it's a
It's just a different
particle
way to
and a
get to
wave.
God. It's a particle and a wave, but it's both, but it's neither, which means like our whole system of constructs is fallible.
Hmm.
Um, if I really break it down, I am more open to believing that she is reading the person, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
every
100%.
interact, like we're 1,000 miles away, and thanks to technology, like we can talk and like we are changing each other. There's some sort of like
Yeah, there's an
quantum
exchange.
entanglement or like whatever. So like there's an idea of you in my mind, right?
Yeah.
And if like you were my husband and you died, then like there's a very clear archetypal like construct in my mind. So like maybe she's talking to the spirit, or maybe she's talking to the spirit that lives on within that person, right? Like, and that
Hmm. Hmm.
sounds a little woo woo, but that makes more sense to me. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe she's talking to the dead husband. I don't freaking
Yeah.
like. I am not a true believer, right? But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, definitely.
ambivalent to that. But yeah, if you're like, oh, it's a lie and therefore bad because lying is bad, that's an overly simplistic. Like you must not get out much. Like you
But
lie
but
all
but
day, every day to grease the wheels of your social interactions.
but often oh, I feel like often D&D players, once they feel wrong, they get this like real spark of vengeance in them, you know?
Oh God,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. It is yeah. Not everyone's looking for moral ambiguity. Dungeon masters are because we've been looking at it for so long that we get bored with the simple stuff. But like, there's the beer and pretzel crowd. Some days I just want to come and curb stomp goblins, and like I don't need
Yeah.
you to make it a question of what's right and wrong. Like, no, kill stuff good. Like, yes, please.
It's
Um,
pretty wild. So, do we go down or do we go right first?
Either way, I always go down. Interestingly, I go
Hmm.
down the column, but I don't know if it matters. So
Okay,
yeah, let's drill down.
let's go.
Let's personify. Let's get an NPC here.
Yeah.
The
Four.
rival soap salesman, perhaps.
Oh no, four. Alistair Croxley. Croxley. Loath to leave his manor house, pays others to bring sacred sites to him through theft.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
I
bold.
think this plays in well with the first faction, right? Because it could be like this triangular sort of event where my antagonist organization is actually working against my rival or enemy, or
Mm.
perhaps they're linked, right? And they've made up these fake sites because they've actually robbed the original site of everything, given it to this Alistair character.
The real Mona Lisa is in some rich guy's palatial estate because us, the plebeians can't really appreciate fine art anyway. So and then
Yeah.
we'll throw milk at it to protest climate change or something. So like he's doing the right thing by protecting it from
Hmm.
the unwashed masses, literally.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm here to fix the unwashed part.
Yeah.
So, okay. I like that. Loath to leave his manor house, pays others to bring sacred sites to him through theft.
I mean, he's also like the party's patron in another campaign. He's the quest
Yeah,
giver too. Just like
yeah. Mm. So I'm trying to link. So that's one way they could be their rival. I'm thinking of another aspect where they could be a rival. In what other way could they conflict against? Oh, perhaps Alistair is purposefully again, like I am seeing this overarching narrative of this character trying to build between the religions and which ones will hear and the order and the true story of history and what happened and the theological truth of whatever place that they exist on. Perhaps this person is actively trying to, uh, by altering the sites that exist, drive a certain narrative onto the
Hmm.
pilgrims along this path. Um, uh, uh,
Interesting.
right? And perhaps he falls into that sort of um, that angle I was describing earlier of the medium saying that, like, oh no, but if perhaps in his own mind is like, if I purify the signal, if I make it more clear and more digestible, I leave less of these loose ends just hanging around this pilgrim path, more
Hmm.
people will find the sanctity of spirituality and find the nurturing and calming beliefs of like feeling like they know the truth, like this sort of propagandizing the masses to make them feel at ease. They have a more brisk relief,
Yes. I like that a
like the
lot.
sort.
Like I'm not stealing stuff. I'm editing to make it more easily digestible for people,
Yeah, exactly that.
clearing
I
up the
like that.
ambiguities and yeah, and that's antithetical to your purpose of like finding out like the truth or like the
Mhm.
origins or whatever. Like this dude is cherry picking or maybe the opposite of cherry picking. I don't know what that would be.
Mhm.
But like
It's definitely cherry picking, I would say.
he's cherry but he's got all the good stuff, right? So event where this one is a heist on this guy's house
If
at
yeah,
some
if
level.
yeah, if and I always like if you're gonna write up a rival or an enemy in a D&D campaign, there has to be for me to invest into it as a DM. Usually, I like to be some angle of some eventuality of these two people interacting, even if I have to switch the rival or enemy from a BBEG to a side character or somebody that pops up or just a faction head you never see. Um, to have some level they are going to be entwined with this person, I like,
Hmm.
and I feel like this is really a solid space that the players will interact with on some level.
Yeah,
Um,
and because it's interesting. In theory, you're gonna have five of these rolled out, or however many characters you have, but or players you have,
mm,
four or five, or whatever, three to five.
mhm.
So like not every, you know, Aleister Croxley might rise to the BBEG, but he might also be like, you know, the Scooby-Doo villain of the level two quest, and like he was the quest giver, but like, haha, you actually stole this thing for him, and he's the bad guy.
The Scooby Doo
Um,
villain.
yeah,
That's so
the
good.
old reveal, which you don't do, but it's gonna happen anyway. Because sometimes the players are gonna decide that the quest giver is evil, and you can to
Yeah.
correct them or lean into it. Um, but yeah, and like going into it, you might not if you expect Aleister Croxley to be that villain that they unmask at level two, but they fail to because they weren't paying attention, or you didn't leave enough clues, or whatever the heck happened, or they think he's learned his lesson and they leave him in play or whatever. Like he can evolve alongside the player characters. You don't necessarily
Mhm.
know at what point they're going to interact with anybody. I mean, you can force it, obviously, but
Yeah,
um,
most definitely.
it's
Are
good
we,
to leave your options open so you can adapt to what happens at the table.
are
Uh,
we ready? Are we ready for a location?
yeah, hit me. D6.
Oh, I got a six. Leaf in Inletstone, a legendary landing site of the first people with secrets buried beneath it. That's perfect. This is what happens every time with this tool set, and it's what happened with me last time with Chamber, is you get to this place where you're like, okay, you're making up a character, you're finally seeing it from like all angles. You see how it fits, you see the adventure, you see the path, you're starting to see a world emerge around the character and the NPCs they'll come across. And at this point, normally adding anything, I think, would be bad, right? Like you have the sauce. Adding anything might too many cooks might mess up, might ruin the broth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then it always gives you something so fitting,
Mm-hmm.
and I really love this one because it's the place that this character's looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's perhaps even the location of where this relic or what they're after would be, or a direction or a midpoint to direct them to where it is. This legendary landing site of the first people. with the secrets. Like when they first got here, there was something on this peninsula, this island, at this location that they interacted with, and it altered the course of history. And everyone's trying to say how describe or relate back to themselves and their narrative. How was it interacted with? And only there can we find out where it is. And there's all these splitting paths that are misdirected by the Shrouded Kin to where this place actually is. And Alistair Cruxley is directing them. And
Mm.
it's so good. It's so good. It's like yeah, the leaf in Letstone.
So I will say because you are in a American context. You might know, but the Leaf Inlet is Plymouth, right? So this it was Plymouth Rock. I've like a few obscured it enough that but like I had to get one. So the Pilgrims in America are like they were Puritans that came to America and they landed in Massachusetts. So I needed to get one joke, and that's like our Thanksgiving is like the Plymouths and the Indians they're having a peaceful meal together because the Indians, the Native Americans, I should say, but Indians are the what I was taught in the childhood. They
Yeah, I,
were took pity on these idiots who were going to starve to death, these religious zealots who crossed into the New World and had no idea how to take care of themselves.
mhm.
Uh,
I hear that amongst their own groups they like different names. Like some of them like to be called Native Americans, some of them like to be called Indians. Like they have their own. It's more complicated than anybody
Oh, I mean,
wants to
because
admit.
it's a million. We
Yeah.
we lumped in, or when I mean, my folks weren't here yet, but they
Hmm.
all they lumped in the nations of people. You're talking
Hmm.
about the larger than the size of America, like a culture of a vast interchange of cultures were happening here, and we're like, well,
Hmm.
these people are all the same because I don't understand them. They look funny to me. But I mean, that's not that's it's a the American version of that is horrific and front and center, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's not
yeah.
the only version of that story.
Hmm.
But I do like the idea of like you go to Boston, you go to Plymouth Rock, it's like it's a tourist trap. There's nothing there. It's just like, oh, is this?
Hmm.
But like secretly, that's not actually Plymouth Rock. This is some like that rock over there is the one that has the dungeon entrance in it. This one is where we send all of them because we don't want the tourists, going. We don't want the pilgrims to actually find the secrets underneath.
Yeah, and perhaps Alistair and his shrouded kin don't know where it is. They just know it's within like this region. It's within, and everyone knows it from the group consciousness, the zeitgeist from the Pilgrim Path, and the narratives and the religious teachings around this place. That it's within a 10-mile region of this location, right? And they, through their propagandizing and controlling of the narrative, have staked out a history where it proves that this is the stone,
Mm,
but
mm,
you as the players know that it's within. We know the only thing we know is it's in this 10-mile region, and this is a fake distraction from it.
mhm.
So it's around here somewhere. And you can go search for it and things like that. I
That's
like
one
that.
of my favorite like world building tools to build a sense of time is like this happened and then these guys started doing something and that cultural heritage like changed over time, right? Like the Shrouded Kin hid the location generations ago, and they did such a good job that they don't even know where it is anymore. Right? And like
Yeah.
they're still around and they're still going through these like practices and rituals and whatever, but like they don't like it's been obfuscated to the point I keep saying that word wrong. To the point where they don't like even the people who hit it don't know where it is. So they're secretly searching for it, but they don't want anyone else to get wind that they're searching for it because then everyone would know that this place isn't the real one. And maybe there's some sort of like, it lends credibility to some sort of like political reign or like there's just an economic incentive to like if this isn't the stone, then all these people will stop coming here and like we want people to come
Yes.
here. So
Yes. And perhaps even, right, like to return to Graham, I think, was our like master Uguay, the person who taught us
Hmm.
this. Perhaps everyone else thought this guy was crazy, and he was just like a really rampant conspiracy theorist that kind of has angles at all of this. There's just like,
Yes.
I don't think the leaf inlet stone is the real leaf inlet stone. Everyone thinks he's crazy. But you were the only one who listened to him when you
Hmm.
were younger, and yeah, I like that angle. It's very fun.
I love an NPC that seems crazy and also like boring, right? Like I love a verbose NPC where it's like this guy knows everything, but you have to sit there and listen to him for a while, and like
Yeah,
you're automatically gonna bounce off him the first or second time you talk to him because it's like,
yeah,
all
yeah.
right, buddy, we got to go fight the monsters now. Speaking of, give me a D6, let's get a monster. Not that we need one,
Okay,
but
I wanted to roll one, but I see the Maya ooze.
to do it, we have that's fine. You're allowed to
Yeah,
do
and
that.
I was locked in on this idea of the soap being like a
Hmm.
thing to destroy the ooze.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
Maya ooze is really solid for this. I'm gonna roll it to see. I got a three anyway.
Did
Okay.
see it's like this is why I'm like I am not quite sure what the Long Island medium is doing, but I'm open to the idea that something's going on because like
So
that's I don't know, that's magic. Whatever.
so 100% it is. It's embedded into the book. So the Maya ooze and your soap being able to scrub it away.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think it's a solid thematic monster. Usually, often I found when I use this table prior, I try and treat the thematic monster as like a one of one, like rather than the thematic monster being like a kobold where there's like thousands of them. I always treat it like it's a troll where there might be like one in a swamp, right?
Hmm.
Um, I think the Maya ooze leans more towards like this thing just shows up. It's a problem for everyone. This is how you made your money to begin with. Where like the taverns need to get rid of the Maya oozes and they scrub everything down with your soap so they don't like generate from like this almost fungus like
Hmm.
way. Yeah, I like that. Um, I like that a lot.
Well,
So lies in wait for prey to step on it, then engulfs their feet and slowly starts digesting them. That's so good. You're with your allies and you're like, hey, rub this on your feet. Why?
hmm.
We're just walking, and just don't worry, you'll need it for later. And you step at one point and it just starts fizzing up, and the DM describes it, and you're like, I knew it, I knew it. One of these was around here somewhere.
And you can give that to your players. Just like here's it because like everyone, it's a news, right? Like there's a million other varieties that aren't like susceptible to soap, so you can get that combat in out of your system some other plays. But like, yeah, you can insta kill the monster before it even rolls initiative because that's going to make your character feel dope. That's going to make the
Yeah.
player feel awesome.
Hmm.
All
Yeah.
right, final
If you're
final.
really if you're really obsessed with getting like them to fire Maya ooze that they don't just insta kill, perhaps because of their use of soap has developed like a immune strain of Maya ooze that the soap can't
Mm.
even get rid of, and that's why the
Mm.
tavern person was mad at you for not getting rid of the ooze because that was like case zero for it in
Wow.
that place.
You invented
And
antibacterial soap, and it seemed like such a good idea at the time. But now you've
yeah,
got super oozes.
you're an artificer and you know that, oh no, if we kill this ooze right now and kill it in its tracks, we're good. But if it spreads, it's bad. So you have like a
Mm.
timer on you now. There's a whole
Mm.
little side quest.
Mm. Because I mean,
Yeah.
everything slots together so
Yeah, yeah.
well, especially with a creative mind at play. But you could, like, if something doesn't fit, like, you can just put it on the shelf. And then once it's like, it could be a random encounter. It's like, oh, that was
Mhm.
interesting and thematically appropriate, but didn't have anything to do with anything.
Yeah, like
Um,
the beacon moth hair. Again, like it could have just been something inside of one of the sacred sites nobody's found yet or something, right? Like it's less on brand, but all of this stuff has a place, right? It's good.
so
Okay.
speaking of roll, D20, the swingiest of dice, the riskiest of
Yeah,
dice.
yeah, yeah. I like how
Um,
you left this to the end. You really pushed it. Okay. Plot hooks, story seeds, adventure ideas. I got a 19.
all right, let's see. Read it out. Tell me. Let's see.
The fragments are places of worship, but now the last one has been found, launching a race to reassemble them.
Woo! Come on.
Okay, that's solid.
We got the rod of seven parts, right?
Hmm.
All of these sacred sites. are like these like remnants, these relics, but they've been hidden.
Hmm.
And like I love a good like cascade of consequences to like project the story forward. So
Hmm.
like you deal with this like first tier of play, you whatever, figure out Alistair's deal, you find the place that the Shrouded Kin have been hiding from you, like you get down to the bottom of the dungeon, you find the thing, the sacred MacGuffin is in your hand, you're going to bring it back to town, and word gets out that the fifth one has been found, and now the other four are
Hmm.
being hunted down because the person, it's the Dragon Balls, whatever you want to do. Like it's,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's like putting these things
100%.
together now. Like there's a reason they were separated.
Hmm.
Um,
That's so
and
sweet.
and
And it
you
would.
and you're trying to unify it. You're trying to get back to the first thing before it was fragmented. That's what you brought into this. Oh man, it's good.
Yeah, and
Good job.
it also ties in your party having some connection to this place, right? You
Hmm.
could easily imagine another party member who had one of the other fragments on them,
Mm-hmm.
right? From the maybe even the start of the adventure. And they have this puzzle piece and they don't know what it's for. It was just a family heirloom and they need to place it somewhere else and they don't know. And they had no idea about it, and it just comes into play at this stage. And now you're a group that has two pieces of this fragment, and oh my god, you got like a real you got a real black mark, right? They got a real like bounty on your head for that. Um, and it puts it's nice because you can be in a arc in the story where you've defeated the Shrouded Kin a little bit, but because you've found these fragments and all the fragments are out there now they can search for them. It gives Alistair a resurgence because he's been collecting all of these, and I'm sure in his house he's got tons of fragments, and perhaps it gives them
Mm,
a resurgence of power. Perhaps a few
mm.
of them gives you some sort of capacity or resource that otherwise he didn't have before and can use it against the players. So it gives you this nice way where you can level up the enemy with the players at the same time, so they can. It makes sense for why they can meet them at different points.
Yeah, love
Um,
it. Love that.
yeah, solid.
Cool. All
Yeah,
right.
that's just
Are you happy with that? You got anything to add? You happy, or do you want to roll a cook? You hate it and you want to forget this pilgrim
no,
guy?
no, no. I'm no roll up a cook. Dude, no, I think this is so solid. We have like a really yeah, the character subverts the expectations of a pilgrim at certain points, and it really invokes a lot of the main themes of it at the same time. I really like this character. I'll
And
probably
we
toss
didn't,
him in as an NPC at some point.
yeah, and we didn't talk about like, I mean, it's what is it? Battle Tech, Battle Master? I forget which. There's a subclass that like has a mechanical. It's always a spider or something, but like you have a mount. Like an artificer, like
Yeah.
even more than a paladin, is likely to
Mhm.
have like a means of transportation.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So like I get this
Yeah.
like the
It's
Don Quixote vibe of like riding down the pilgrim's path
yeah.
on your sacred quests, and everyone else thinks you're crazy until you actually find the piece, and it's like, whoa, uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody thinks you're crazy for following what Graham believes, but then eventually you come upon it.
The prophecy
Solid.
spoke of a soap salesman.
Yeah. A grease deliverer. Yeah. Yeah.
All
It's
right. Well, that was
this is
deeply
nice.
satisfying.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go
I'm excited.
widescreen again. Boop.
Ooh. Ooh. Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us. What's on deck? You've been on a little bit of hiatus, focusing on other stuff. What can people
Yeah.
expect from you down the road?
So I think in a few months, I'm going to start running a few more campaigns, like short ones. I'm probably going to look around for players for this. So join the
Mm,
Discord,
mm,
come into the Twitch streams if you're interested in watching a Curse of Strahd game. Those short campaigns I'm going to run are probably going to be outside of 5e. Probably I'm going to try out a lot of different indie settings. I'm also interested in starting up the blank slate again, this time with more of a focus of trying out these different tools.
mm.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that too. But that's all in the D&D space. That's about
Awesome.
it.
Are you familiar with Kevin Crawford, World Without Numbers, City Without Numbers?
Oh, I've heard of this. Yeah, yeah. I
Some of the I think we talked about it when we were like kind of bashing the DMG.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in one of our conversations. But one of my favorite world building tools. Also, Tome of Adventure Design. Boop. Um,
Yeah.
it's got everything, so it's more. It's I
Mm.
think it's quantity over quality, but also a tool worth looking at. Even if get your buddy to bash it, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll take a look.
Not that it's bashable. I mean, I use that thing. I like that thing, but um, it's bumpier.
Mhm.
Worlds Without Numbers is deeply is really cool stuff there.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely gonna have to give it a
Um,
peek on stream sometime.
Blake Slate podcast is awesome. There's a bunch of back catalog stuff on YouTube, some great world building. If you enjoyed this
Mhm.
conversation, you will enjoy all of those. You bring a lot of like a broad subset of different like knowledge bases to things, which I enjoy. I think it's not
Yeah.
just we don't just talk about D&D when we talk because you have yeah you're a very smart, well-informed, educated person who has
So as are you, as are
the
you. It's
ability. Well,
always
thank you.
fun.
The ability to like form these connections. It's yeah, it's great. And yeah, let me know, man. I'll be watching on the Discord because I maybe I'll
Yeah,
hop in another one of those games. I'm down.
I'll reach
The
out.
one I played was real fun. So
I'm
yeah,
glad.
go like, subscribe, follow on Twitch, sub, all that
Please
good
do.
stuff. And
Sub to the Verdigness table as well. Don't
thank you
forget,
kindly.
Doyle. Follow him on
Yeah,
Twitter.
but yeah, follow me where the stuff is. Thanks everybody. Be kind, have fun, make some awesome characters, and yeah, support your dungeon masters. Peace.
Bye bye.